Hello students, today we are going to compare cubic, square root, and cube root functions. And I'm using lesson 18 from module 4 to do this. So let's take a look at this opening exercise. It says evaluate x squared when x equals 7. So we just substitute in 7 for x. And so 7 squared is just 7 times 7, which is 49. B, evaluate the square root of x when x is 81. So the square root of x, we know that one, it's plus or minus 9, because 9 times 9 is 81, and negative 9 times negative 9 is 81. C says evaluate x to the third, or x cubed, when x is 5. So 5 to the third is 5 times 5 times 5. So 5 times 5 is 25, times 5 is 125. Part D says evaluate the cube root of x when x is 27. Okay, so what would we multiply by itself 3 times to get 27? Well, the cube root of 27 is 3, because 3 times 3 times 3 equals 27. And I want to show you how to do that on your graphing calculator. So all we have to do is look under the math option. So I want to choose math. And then that fourth option says cube root. So I'm going to hit enter. And then I'll just type in 27 and enter, and it tells me the answer is 3. You see that up there? The answer is 3. So again, on the calculator, I went to math, and then the fourth option was that cube root option. So let's look at Exploratory Challenge 1. Use your graphing calculator to create a data table for the functions y equals x squared and y equals square root of x for a variety of x values. Use both positive and negative numbers and round decimals to the nearest hundredth. Well, I'm going to give you some numbers to try. So I want you to use 4, 2, 0, negative 2, and negative 4 for x. So what I like for you to do is pause the video and do this on your own, and then come back. So pause it now, fill out these other 2 columns here, and then come back and check your answer. Okay, hopefully you paused. So for 4 squared, that's 16. 2 squared is 4. 0 squared is 0, negative 2 squared is positive 4, and negative 4 squared is positive 16. For square root, the square root of 4 is positive or negative 2. The square root of 2 is positive or negative 1.4. The square root of 0 is, of course, 0. What about the square root of negative 2? What did you get when you did that on your calculator? So let's do second and x squared to get the square root. And then let's type in negative 2. When I hit enter on this one, it gives me this number, but do you see the I behind it? That means this is an imaginary number. It's not a real number. Remember, we can have real numbers and imaginary numbers. On your calculator, it probably said error. And it probably said the same thing when you try to do the square root of negative 4. And why is that? Well, whenever you take the square root of something, you get that positive and negative number, but you can't do the square root of negative 2. That's why whenever we're talking, when we were doing the quadratic formula, if you got a square negative under your square root sign, we said that we had to stop because that was not a real answer. All right, so let's turn the page. Now I want you to graph these on the same set of axes. There's a couple ways you could do it. We could use those points that we came up with a while ago. So we did y equals x squared. We had the points -4, 16, -2, 4, 0, 0, 2, 4, 4, 16. You could go graph those points. When we did y equals the square root of x, we had 0, 0, 2, 1.4, 1, I think it was, and then 4, 2. We could do that, or we could use technology as an aid, and we can go graph these on the graphing calculator, which is what I'm going to do. So if you go to y equals, in y sub 1 I have put x squared, and y sub 2 I have put the square root of x. Remember, square root is right above the x squared key. And then when I go to graph those, this is what it looks like. Now I have my window set for, let's see, -10 to 10 on the x. And then I went from -3 to 10 on the y, because I knew from experience I was not going to have any negative values. Because again, if I try to do a negative x for y equals square root of x, I do not get a real number. Okay, so this is what y equals square root of x looks like. It's your first time seeing this. All right, let's go back to our packet. Let's look at Exploratory Challenge 3. It wants us to create a data table for y equals x to the third and y equals the cube root of x. So again, I would like for you to pause this, please, and go do this on your own, and then come back and check. Okay, hopefully you paused, and now you're back to check. So -8 squared is -8 times -8, which is positive 64, times -8 again gives me -512. -2 cubed is -8. -1 cubed is -1. 0 cubed is 0. 1 cubed is 1. 2 cubed is 8. And 8 cubed is 512. For the cube root, remember, this is math and then option 4 for the cube root. The cube root of -8 is -2. The cube root of -2 is -1.26. The cube root of -1 is -1. The cube root of 0 is 0. The cube root of 1 is 1. The cube root of 2 is 1.26. And the cube root of 8 is 2. So you should notice a pattern here. Okay, as I have negative numbers, I have negative, as I have negative x's, I have negative y's. As I have positive x's, I have positive y's. And then again, it says to graph this. Well, we could graph it by hand by making an x-axis, a y-axis and an x-axis. And we could do these ordered pairs, right? We would do this set of ordered pairs, and then we would pair these x's with these y's, or we could use technology as an aid, which is what I will choose to do. So I'm going to go back and graph these. Let me clear out what's here. So x to the third, I'm going to choose x. I'm going to use my little housetop option to get to the third. And y2, I'm going to do the cube root of x. So again, that's under math, option 4. And then I'm going to go graph these. Woo, that's different, isn't it? And if you can see, the first one I put in was y equals x to the third. And on my screen, that's going to be the blue. And then y equals cube root of x is the red. So do you see how they look very familiar? They're just, or very similar. They're just in different places on the axis. All right, let's go back to our packet. Oh, and I'll put C calculator because we did all that on our graphing calculator. Again, you could do it by hand. It wouldn't be bad to do it by hand to help you remember, but you may use technology as an aid. All right, so here's what I'd like for you to do for your assignment today. Okay, on the problem set, you're going to do number 1. Okay, they've given you x values, and then f of x they said is x squared plus 2. G of x is the square root of x plus 2. Notice the only part of that you're taking the square root of is the x. All right? Now, I do want you to graph this by hand on graph paper. And you know where the graph paper is in the classroom if you need it. Then you're going to answer question 2, 3, 4. On the next page, you're going to create the graphs. You're going to do number 4. So again, P of x is x to the third minus 2, and Q of x is the cube root of x minus 2. And then you're going to graph. You can use the same sheet of graph paper. Okay, you can use the same sheet that you used for number 1. Not the same graph, okay, the same sheet. So whenever you get your sheet of graph paper, right, it's big, it's got holes in it, maybe divide it in half. Do number 1 up here, number 2 down here. Notice you only really need to go 10 here, 10 here, negative 10, and 10, right? So you don't need to use the whole piece of paper. Like that. And then I want you to do number 6, number 7, and number 8. Okay? So you are doing 1 through 8. And you are doing graphs by hand. It'll be good for you on number 1 and 5. All right, hope you have a great day. Bye.